The Galactic Council had made a grave miscalculation. When they detected Earth, a volatile Class 12 death world with abnormally high gravity, extreme temperature variations, and toxic atmospheric components, they expected its inhabitants to be savage warriors. Their intelligence suggested humans were resilient creatures who had survived countless natural disasters, wars, and biological threats. What better species to conscript for the looming conflict with the Void Swarm? Admiral Trell, commander of the Consortium Extraction Fleet, studied the holographic display of Earth. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he considered the reports. They've developed nuclear weapons but haven't annihilated themselves. Fascinating, he murmured to his second-in-command, Officer Kryn. The specimens we require are in this region, Kryn pointed to a suburban area. Our data suggests these humans possess the optimal genetic traits. 3 days later, the extraction team returned with 2 humans, not the fierce warriors they had anticipated, but a middle-aged couple named Tom and Linda Miller. Tom was a high school physics teacher with thinning hair and reading glasses perpetually perched on his nose. Linda worked as a pediatric nurse with kind eyes and a warm smile that had comforted countless children. Neither had fired a weapon in their lives. There must be some mistake, Trell hissed, mandibles clicking in frustration. These cannot be the formidable Deathworlders our intelligence described. Before them, Tom was trying to comfort his wife while simultaneously examining the alien technology with unconcealed fascination. Linda, look at this. The propulsion system must work on principles beyond our current understanding of physics. Maybe some application of quantum mechanics we haven't discovered yet. Linda was more practical. Tom, focus. We've been abducted by aliens. We need to figure out how to get home. Officer Kryn approached the humans cautiously. You have been selected to assist in our war against the Void Swarm. Your resilience as Deathworlders will be invaluable. War? Linda crossed her arms. I'm a nurse. I heal people. I don't fight in wars. And I teach teenagers about momentum. And gravity, Tom added. The only battles I fight are against cell phones in my classroom. Admiral Trell's exoskeleton stiffened with dismay. The extraction team had failed spectacularly. Instead of hardened warriors, they'd abducted a teacher and a nurse. But there was no time to rectify the error. The ship shuddered violently as alarms blared throughout the vessel. Void Swarm advance scouts, a crew member shouted. 3 vessels approaching at attack velocity. Trell's antennae quivered. Prepare defensive measures. Secure the humans in containment. As the security team approached, Tom stepped protectively in front of Linda. It was an instinctive gesture, one that caught Trell's attention. Perhaps there was something to these humans after all. The ship rocked again, harder this time. Sparks showered from a nearby console as crew members scrambled to their battle stations. We need to get to the escape pods, Linda whispered to Tom. No, Tom replied, eyes fixed on the chaotic scene unfolding before them. These aliens made a mistake bringing us here, but they're in trouble, and they're clearly not prepared for whatever's attacking them. Linda recognized the look on her husband's face. The same determined expression he wore when one of his students was struggling and needed extra help. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking that we survived raising 3 teenagers through high school. How much worse could an alien war be? The Void Swarm attack intensified. 3 crystalline ships, their surfaces refracting starlight into deadly energy beams, circled the consortium vessel like predators toying with prey, and the bridge. Admiral Trell barked orders while Officer Kryn attempted to coordinate the defense systems. Their movements were precise but tinged with panic. The Void Swarm had found them sooner than expected. Meanwhile, Tom and Linda had not been secured as ordered. In the chaos, they'd been forgotten, left to observe the unfolding disaster with mounting concern. Those crystals, Tom muttered, studying the enemy ships on the display screen. They're focusing energy like enormous prisms. Linda watched the alien crew. Despite their inhuman appearance, exoskeletons, compound eyes, and mandibles, their fear was unmistakable. She'd seen the same look on children facing their first surgery. They need help, Tom. A young crew member was injured when his console exploded, green fluid seeping from a crack in his exoskeleton. Without hesitation, Linda rushed to his side. I need something to stop the bleeding, she called out, her nurse's training taking over. The aliens stared in disbelief as Linda tore a strip of fabric from her shirt and expertly fashioned a pressure bandage. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, transitioning seamlessly from human anatomy to alien physiology. "Keep pressure here," she instructed another crew member, "and elevate this limb." Across the bridge, Tom had edged closer to the main tactical display. His teacher's mind was piecing together patterns in the enemy's movements. "Admiral," he called out, surprising himself with his own boldness. "Those ships are using your own shields against you. The energy isn't random. They're calculating reflection angles." Trell turned all four eyes toward the human, momentarily, too stunned to enforce hierarchy. "How could you possibly know that?" "Physics," Tom replied simply. "I've been teaching action-reaction principles for 20 years. It's basic refraction and reflection, just scaled up enormously. You need to modulate your shield frequency randomly, create uncertainty in their calculations." Trell hesitated, mandibles clicking rapidly, the alien equivalent of nervous contemplation. "Do it," he finally ordered. Officer Kryn inputted the commands, and immediately the effectiveness of the enemy's attacks diminished. The ship stabilized as the crystalline vessels adjusted their strategy. "It worked!" Kryn exclaimed, but the victory was short-lived. The Void Swarm ships changed formation, preparing for a concentrated assault. "They're adapting," Tom warned. "They'll breach the hull in minutes." Linda had moved on to another injured crew member, improvising medical care with unfamiliar tools. "Tom, remember when the twins got that terrible flu? How we had to keep changing treatments because nothing worked for long?" Tom's eyes widened with sudden understanding. "Kryn, can you program the shields to cycle through frequencies? Not random, patterned but unpredictable, like music?" "Like music?" Kryn's translator struggled with the concept. "Yes, like a symphony," Tom explained, thinking quickly. "Patterns within patterns. Order that seems like chaos to outsiders." As Kryn implemented Tom's suggestion, Linda organized the uninjured crew members into a makeshift medical team. She demonstrated basic first aid techniques adapted for alien physiology, her voice calm and authoritative. "Apply pressure here. Monitor this reading. If it drops below this line, call me immediately." Admiral Trell watched the humans with growing fascination. These weren't warriors, true, but their response to crisis revealed something perhaps more valuable: adaptability and specialized knowledge born from surviving a death world. The ship shuddered again, but less violently. The shield modifications were working, at least temporarily. "We've bought time," Tom said, "but we need a better solution." "What we need," Linda added, looking up from her patient, "is to understand what they want. Every creature has needs, even crystal aliens." Trell's antennae twitched with surprise. In all the consortium's encounters with the Void Swarm, no one had ever suggested understanding the enemy's motivations. They had expected warriors. Instead, they got a teacher and a nurse. And for the first time since the conflict began, Admiral Trell wondered if that might be exactly what they needed. The temporary reprieve from the Void Swarm's assault gave the consortium ship precious minutes to regroup. Throughout the vessel, Linda's improvised medical teams tended to the injured, while Tom worked with the engineering crew to refine the shield modulations. "Tell me about these Void Swarm creatures," Tom asked Officer Kryn as they analyzed the enemy ship's patterns. "What do you actually know about them?" Kryn's antennae drooped slightly. "Very little. They appeared at the galaxy's edge 3 cycles ago. They consume resources, particularly crystalline minerals and certain energy signatures. Communication attempts have failed. So you haven't actually tried to understand them? You just started fighting?" The alien engineer shifted uncomfortably. "The consortium protocol for unknown hostile entities is defensive engagement." Tom sighed. 20 years of breaking up schoolyard fights had taught him that misunderstandings were often at the root of conflict. Has anyone considered they might be trying to communicate through those energy patterns? On the medical deck, Linda was asking similar questions. "These crystal ships," she addressed Admiral Trell while dressing a wound. "Have you analyzed their composition?" "Initial scans suggest silicon-based structures with complex carbon lattices," Trell replied. "Why does this matter while we're under attack?" Linda secured a bandage and straightened up. "Because as a nurse, I've learned that treatment fails when you don't understand the patient. These creatures might be silicon-based life forms, Their biology, their needs, their communication, everything would be fundamentally different from carbon-based life like yours or mine. Trell's exoskeleton shifted in what Linda recognized as the alien equivalent of uncomfortable realization. The consortium has extensive protocols for carbon-based life engagement, Trell admitted. None for silicon-based sentience. Tom's voice came through the ship's communication system. Admiral, I think we've been misinterpreting their actions. The energy patterns they're emitting follow mathematical sequences, prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences. That's not random. That's deliberate. It's like they're trying to establish basic communication, Linda suggested. Tom continued, excitement building in his voice. Remember that old movie, Close Encounters, where humans communicated with aliens through musical tones? What if we try something similar? For the next hour, Tom worked with the science team to develop a response using the ship's energy emissions to mimic and expand upon the mathematical patterns they'd identified. Linda, meanwhile, hypothesized about the biological needs of silicon-based life forms. They might perceive what you call attacks as attempts to exchange energy or resources, she explained to Trell. Silicon-based life would have entirely different metabolic requirements. When they were ready, the consortium ship broadcast Tom's mathematical response toward the Void Swarm vessels. There was a tense silence as everyone waited. The crystalline ships stopped their assault. After a moment, they emitted a new pattern of energy, one that mirrored and built upon the sequence Tom had sent. "They're responding!" Kryn exclaimed. Over the next several hours, the rudimentary communication developed. The consortium scientists, guided by Tom's insights about pattern recognition and Linda's hypotheses about biological imperatives, established that the Void Swarm wasn't attacking out of hostility. They were desperate for specific mineral resources depleted in their home region. They don't want war, Tom explained to the gathered alien officers. They need certain elements to sustain their crystalline structures, like how we need water and food. Their method of asking is just incredibly destructive to us, Linda added. It would be like if we tried to communicate by setting off nuclear reactions, not realizing smaller beings might be harmed. Admiral Trell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he processed this paradigm shift. So, the great threat to the consortium is a resource-gathering expedition. One that doesn't recognize you as sentient in the way they understand sentience, Tom confirmed. They probably see your ships as unusual obstacles, not as vessels containing life. As the immediate crisis subsided, Trell studied the 2 humans with new appreciation. These Deathworlders had achieved in hours what the consortium's military might could not accomplish in years. Not through combat prowess, but through understanding and communication. The humans' approach was distinctly parental. Tom's patient, teaching methodology and Linda's nurturing healthcare skills had transformed an interstellar conflict into a solvable problem. It was a perspective entirely foreign to the consortium's militaristic approach. Perhaps, Trell mused, we have much to learn from Earth after all. Word of the breakthrough with the Void Swarm spread quickly through the consortium fleet. What had been anticipated as a devastating battle became instead a complex diplomatic mission, with Tom and Linda unexpectedly at its center. The consortium's Grand Hall, a cavernous chamber aboard their capital ship, hosted representatives from 12 species. All eyes, some compound, some singular, some merely sensory patches, focused on the human couple standing before the council. These parents, announced High Counselor Vex, emphasizing the unfamiliar term, have demonstrated an approach to the Void Swarm crisis that our military strategists failed to conceive. Tom cleared his throat nervously. Public speaking to teenagers was one thing. Addressing an interstellar council was quite another. We just applied basic principles of education and care, the same ones we use with our own children. Explain. This concept of parenting that informed your approach, requested a gelatinous counselor who pulsed with bioluminescent curiosity. Linda stepped forward. Parenting isn't just about protection or authority. It's about guidance. Understanding needs beneath behaviors. A child throwing a tantrum isn't being malicious. They're expressing an unmet need they can't articulate. And the Void Swarm's tantrums were resource scarcity, Tom added. Their destructive patterns were essentially saying, "Help us," in the only way they knew how. The counselors murmured among themselves. The concept was revolutionary in interstellar diplomacy. Most spacefaring races had evolved beyond their biological imperative to nurture, using technology to raise offspring with minimal direct involvement. The human approach seemed primitive, yet had proven remarkably effective. "We have established a working communication system with the swarm," Officer Kryn reported, displaying holographic schematics, based on Tom's pattern recognition protocols and Linda's insights about their biological needs. The first official exchange with the Void Swarm had been arranged. The crystalline entities couldn't board the consortium vessels. Their energy fields would disrupt life support systems, so a remote communication chamber had been prepared. As the designated time approached, Tom and Linda found themselves alone, in a corridor, taking a moment before the historic meeting. "When we promised for better or worse, I don't think either of us imagined alien diplomacy," Linda said, straightening Tom's collar out of habit. Tom smiled wryly. "Still easier than chaperoning senior prom." Admiral Trell approached, his gait more deferential than when they'd first met. "The Council has a request. They want you to lead the exchange." "Us? Not your diplomats?" Linda asked. "Our diplomats understand treaties and power dynamics," Trell explained. "You understand nurturing, care, concepts we've evolved beyond but clearly need to relearn." The communication chamber was austere, a spherical room with projection equipment that would translate the Void Swarm's energy patterns into visual and auditory signals the humans could comprehend. When the connection activated, the room filled with pulsating light patterns and harmonic tones. The Void Swarm representatives were communicating. Tom and Linda, drawing on their decades of parental experience, approached the interaction with patience and clear boundaries, explaining consortium territories and offering alternative resource-rich regions the swarm could safely harvest. To the Council's amazement, the swarm responded positively. Their light patterns shifted from sharp, aggressive bursts to smoother, more rhythmic pulses that the translation matrix interpreted as acceptance. "They're agreeing to the boundaries," Tom explained to the observing counselors. "But they're also sharing information about their migration patterns. They're not just random raiders. They follow cosmic energy currents across galaxies." "Like nomadic herders," Linda added. "They're not conquering territory. They're following traditional routes their species has used for millennia." The revelation transformed the consortium's understanding of the conflict. What they had interpreted as an invasion was actually a migratory species following ancient paths that now intersected with expanded consortium territory. As the session concluded, "Hi," Counselor Vex approached the humans. "Your methods are unprecedented. The Council requests that you remain as advisors during the negotiation process." Tom and Linda exchanged glances. "We need to return to Earth," Linda said firmly. "We have jobs, responsibilities, and 3 children who are probably worried sick about us," Tom added. Vex's sensory appendages rippled with something approximating understanding. "Of course. Family bonds. Another concept we must re-examine. Perhaps we could establish an ongoing relationship. Earth representatives who understand both worlds." Tom's eyes lit up with the enthusiasm he usually reserved for explaining complex physics concepts. "An interstellar cultural exchange program? With appropriate safety measures and voluntary participation, of course." Linda recognized that look. It was the same expression he'd worn when proposing woodworking as a hobby or suggesting they foster troubled teens. Her husband had found a new project. "We'll need to discuss the details," she said diplomatically. "But first, we need to go home." As they left the chamber, Admiral Trell accompanied them. "You have given us something more valuable than warriors," he admitted. "You've shown us another way to approach the universe." "It's just parenting," Linda replied with a smile, "applied on a slightly larger scale." The return to Earth was negotiated with surprising speed, considering the bureaucratic nature of the consortium. Admiral Trell personally oversaw the arrangements, insisting on a properly equipped vessel and an honor guard, a gesture that amused Tom and Linda, but which they recognized as significant in alien diplomatic terms. Before departure, High Counselor Vex presented them with communication devices disguised as ordinary wristwatches. "For maintaining contact," Vex explained, "and for summoning assistance if needed." Linda examined the device skeptically. "If you could build something this unobtrusive, why the dramatic abduction in the first place?" Trell's exoskeleton shifted, in what they now recognized as embarrassment. The extraction team was overzealous. They believed humans would respond best to displays of superior technology. "Next time, try knocking on the door," Tom suggested dryly. As their ship approached Earth, Tom and Linda were permitted to send a message ahead, routed through human communication satellites in a way that would appear to come from a remote vacation spot with poor reception. Their children needed some explanation for their 2-week absence, after all. "What do we tell the kids?" Linda wondered. "The truth sounds absolutely insane." Tom considered this. "We stick as close to the truth as possible. We say we were recruited as cultural consultants for an international organization, which is technically accurate, and just leave out the part about aliens and interstellar war?" "For now," Tom nodded. "Though I have a feeling they'll need to know eventually." The consortium ship entered Earth's orbit under stealth protocols. A small shuttle would deliver Tom and Linda to a remote location near their home in the middle of the night, minimizing the chance of detection. As they prepared to board the shuttle, Admiral Trell approached with an unexpected request. "The Council has authorized me to offer you positions as official human representatives to the consortium," he announced. "Your perspective has proven invaluable." Linda raised an eyebrow. "You want to hire us?" "I have patients who depend on me." "Tom has students." "The arrangement would be part-time," Trell clarified. "Consultation via the communication devices, occasional off-world meetings during your vacation periods. The consortium would provide compensation and support for your regular occupations." Tom and Linda exchanged glances, having one of those silent conversations developed over decades of marriage. "We'll consider it," Tom finally replied. "But our first priority is reconnecting with our family and processing everything that's happened." The shuttle ride to Earth was surreal, watching their blue planet grow larger through the viewport, the familiar continents taking shape. When they finally touched down in a forest clearing just 5 miles from their suburban home, both felt a wave of relief so profound it bordered on physical sensation. Officer Kryn, who had piloted the shuttle, offered them a formal salute, a gesture learned from studying Earth broadcasts. "The consortium owes you a debt, humans. You have changed our understanding of diplomacy forever. Just remember what we taught you about the Void Swarm," Linda said. "Listen first. Understand needs. Set boundaries with compassion. Parenting. Wisdom works for most conflicts," Tom added. "Whether it's siblings fighting over toys or aliens fighting over asteroids." A driverless vehicle, arranged by the consortium through surprisingly easy hacking of an Earth car rental service, awaited them at the edge of the forest. By dawn, they were pulling into their driveway, the familiar sight of their modest home, bringing tears to Linda's eyes. Their oldest daughter, Kate, opened the door before they'd even stepped out of the car. At 24, she had moved back home temporarily while attending graduate school. Behind her stood their 19-year-old twins, Ben and Alex, home from college for the weekend. The reunion was emotional. Hugs, questions, expressions of worry, despite their message. The cover story about cultural consultation held up reasonably well, though Kate gave them suspicious looks when they were vague about details. That evening, after a family dinner that Tom and Linda appreciated with new intensity, Kate cornered them in the kitchen. "Okay, what really happened?" she demanded quietly. "You two are acting weird. Dad keeps staring at the refrigerator like it's a miracle of technology. And Mom, you nearly cried when Ben complained about his professor." Linda busied herself with dishes. "It's been an intense couple of weeks. The work was perspective-changing." "What kind of cultural consulting requires physics teachers and pediatric nurses?" Kate pressed. "And gives them security clearance so high they can't talk about it?" Tom sighed. Kate had always been perceptive, too smart for simple deceptions. He glanced at Linda, who gave a slight nod. "We'll tell you," he said. "But not tonight. Tonight, we just want to be home." Later, lying in their own bed for the first time in 2 weeks, Tom and Linda discussed their next steps. "How much do we tell them?" Tom wondered. "Everything, eventually," Linda said. "They deserve to know the world they're living in, but we need to process it ourselves first." Tom nodded, staring at the familiar ceiling. "You know the most surprising thing about all this? That aliens exist, that we prevented an interstellar war, that we're now basically ambassadors to a Galactic Federation? No, Tom said softly. That after all their advanced research and technology, what the universe really needed was just parents. People who know how to listen and care. Linda smiled in the darkness. The universe is just a very large household, apparently, with some unusual children. Outside their window, stars twinkled in the night sky. No longer distant points of light, but places they now knew contained life, challenges, and possibilities. The universe had become simultaneously larger and smaller, and somewhere up there the consortium was learning to parent the galaxy, one conflict at a time. The adjustment back to normal life proved more challenging than either Tom or Linda had anticipated. How does one grade physics quizzes after helping establish communication with crystalline alien entities? How does one focus on childhood vaccinations after treating extraterrestrial injuries? 2 months after their return, they were still finding their footing. The consortium communication devices, disguised as smart watches, occasionally vibrated, with updates on the Void Swarm negotiations or requests for input on cultural misunderstandings with other species. "Mr. Miller, you seem distracted today," commented Ellie, one of Tom's more perceptive students, after he'd spent a full minute staring out the classroom window at the sky. "Just thinking about perspective, Ellie," he replied. "How small we are, in the grand scheme, yet how significant our actions can be." His teaching had changed subtly. Physics lessons now included more examples of how principles might apply in varied gravitational conditions or theoretical applications for interstellar travel. His colleagues noticed his renewed passion but attributed it to some inspirational professional development during his mysterious, consulting absence. Linda, meanwhile, found her nursing practice enhanced by her alien medical experiences. The improvised techniques she'd developed aboard the consortium ship translated into innovative approaches to human care. Her ability to calm anxious children seemed even more effective now that she'd successfully treated alien life forms. At home, they had gradually shared portions of the truth with their children. Kate, with her academic background in international relations, had been the first to fully believe them, finding the geopolitical implications fascinating. The twins were more skeptical, until Tom showed them how the communication device could project small holograms when no one else was around. "So, you guys are basically the Men in Black now?" Ben had asked, half joking. "More like the Parents in Black," Alex suggested. "Saving the galaxy with timeouts and stern talks." Family dinner conversations had taken on new dimensions, with discussions about cosmic ethics and what Earth's eventual official introduction to the galactic community might look like. The children had sworn themselves to secrecy, understanding the potential panic full disclosure might cause. One evening, as Tom and Linda were cleaning up after dinner, both of their devices vibrated simultaneously, the signal for urgent communication. They excused themselves to their bedroom and activated the secure holographic interface. Admiral Trell's image appeared, his exoskeleton showing signs of stress. "Humans, we require your assistance. A situation has developed with the Void Swarm." The carefully negotiated resource-sharing agreement was breaking down. A faction within the swarm had split off, rejecting the boundaries established in the treaty. They were approaching a densely populated consortium mining colony. "Our military advisors are pushing for preemptive strikes," Trell explained. "But given your previous success," Tom ran a hand through his hair, "this isn't something we can consult on remotely. We'd need to see the patterns, understand what's changed." Linda nodded in agreement. "Different behavior means different needs. Without direct observation, we'd just be guessing." "The Council anticipated your response," Trell said. "A shuttle has been dispatched to your location, arrival in approximately 6 hours. If you are willing." They looked at each other, that silent married communication passing between them. "We'll be ready," Linda confirmed. "But we'll need to tell our children where we're going this time." When they explained the situation to their family, the response was unexpected. "We're coming with you," Kate announced firmly. "Absolutely not," Linda replied immediately. Kate stood her ground. "Mom, I'm writing my thesis on conflict resolution in multicultural settings. This is literally my field of expertise. And I've been studying xenolinguistics," Alex added. "The pattern-based communication you described with the Void Swarm. I've been developing algorithms that might help refine the translation. Ben, who was pursuing engineering, simply said, "You're going to need technical support, someone who understands both human and alien perspectives on technology." Tom and Linda were stunned into momentary silence. "It's too dangerous," Linda finally managed. "More dangerous than living on a planet that doesn't know it's in the middle of potential interstellar conflict?" Kate countered. "We can help. We've been raised by you two. We literally have Deathworlder parenting in our DNA." The debate continued until the shuttle's arrival was imminent. In the end, a compromise was reached. Kate would accompany them as a legitimate diplomatic resource, while the twins would remain on Earth as emergency contacts, continuing their research to support from afar. As they prepared to depart, Tom found himself packing his old teacher's planner alongside the alien technology. Linda tucked a family photo into her medical kit. "We've created quite the unusual family legacy," Tom remarked. Linda smiled wryly. "Most parents worry about passing down the family business. Ours just happens to be interstellar diplomacy." The consortium shuttle arrived precisely on schedule, landing silently in their backyard under cover of darkness. Officer Kryn emerged, now familiar enough with human customs to offer a handshake. "Welcome back to service, Earth representatives," he greeted them formally, then paused at the sight of Kate. "You've reproduced?" "This is our daughter, Kate," Tom explained. "She's a specialist in conflict resolution. We believe her expertise will be valuable." Kryn's antennae twitched in what they now recognized as confusion, but he merely said, "The consortium appreciates all human assistance in this matter." As they boarded the shuttle, the twins watched from the porch. Ben raised a hand in farewell, while Alex called out, "Bring us back some alien souvenirs this time." The shuttle door sealed, and Earth fell away beneath them, their home growing smaller until it was just another point of light among stars. "First family space vacation," Kate quipped nervously, as the shuttle accelerated toward the waiting consortium ship. Linda reached over to squeeze her daughter's hand. "Not exactly how I imagined our family would make history." Tom gazed out at the stars, thinking about the classroom he'd left behind, and the vastly larger classroom he was entering. Sometimes the most important lessons are the ones we never planned to teach. 3 days later, the Miller family, minus the twins, stood before the Consortium Emergency Council aboard the flagship vessel orbiting a disputed asteroid belt. Kate, despite her initial nervousness, had already impressed several counselors with her analysis of the Void Swarm faction's behavioral changes. "Their movement patterns show classic signs of resource panic," she explained, pointing to holographic projections. "Similar to human refugee crises when populations fear scarcity." High Counselor Vex's sensory appendages rippled with interest. "The young human has her progenitor's insight." Tom beamed with parental pride before refocusing on the crisis. "The Splinter faction isn't being aggressive. They're being desperate. Something has changed in their environment." Linda studied the medical data they'd collected on Void Swarm biology. "There's a particular mineral frequency they're seeking, different from the resources outlined in our original agreement." Working together, the Miller family identified the problem. A rare crystalline compound essential to the swarm's reproductive cycle had been depleted in their allocated territories. The Splinter faction wasn't rebelling against the treaty. They were trying to ensure their species' survival. "It's like when animals migrate outside their usual patterns during drought years," Kate explained to the council. "They're not being malicious. They're following biological imperatives." Armed with this understanding, Tom proposed a solution: restructuring the resource-sharing agreement to include breeding ground territories with seasonal access rights. Linda added medical protocols for monitoring crystalline health during reproductive phases. What impressed the council most wasn't just the solution itself, but the way the Millers worked together, building on each other's ideas, compensating for individual blind spots, creating something greater than any could have achieved alone. "This is human family dynamics?" asked a fascinated counselor. "At its best," Linda confirmed. "Though we have our disagreements too." When they finally met with representatives of the Void Swarm Splinter faction, the Millers approached the negotiation with the united front they'd perfected through years of parenting teenagers. Kate established the communication framework. Tom explained the physics of the proposed resource-sharing model. and Linda addressed biological concerns. The crystalline entities responded with increasingly harmonious energy patterns, the equivalent of cautious agreement. By the 5th day, a new treaty had been established. The crisis was averted without a single shot fired. As the consortium celebrated this diplomatic victory, Admiral Trell approached the Millers with a formal proposal. "The Council has authorized me to establish what humans would call an exchange program," he announced. "We wish to learn this parenting approach to conflict resolution, and in return, we offer knowledge and technology that might benefit Earth, within appropriate safety parameters, of course." Tom and Linda exchanged glances with Kate, who nodded encouragingly. "We would need to involve Earth governments eventually," Tom said carefully. "A controlled disclosure to prevent panic. And strict environmental protections," Linda added. "Earth's ecosystems are fragile. And fair representation for all Earth nations," Kate insisted. "Not just the powerful ones." Trell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture they now knew indicated respect. "You protect your planetary family as fiercely as your biological one. This is precisely the perspective the consortium needs." Over the following months, the Miller family became the unlikely architects of humanity's first steps into galactic society. Their approach was distinctly parental, cautious, nurturing, focused on long-term well-being rather than immediate gains. The twins joined the effort from Earth, with Ben developing technical safeguards for information exchange and Alex refining communication protocols. What had begun as an accidental abduction had become a family enterprise spanning worlds. 1 year after their initial encounter with the consortium, Tom and Linda stood before a small gathering of Earth's leaders in a secure facility beneath the United Nations building. Kate and the twins flanked them as they prepared to facilitate humanity's first official contact with extraterrestrial life. "Are you nervous?" Linda whispered to Tom as technicians made final adjustments to the communication equipment. "Terrified," he admitted, "but also strangely calm. We've faced first contact, interstellar war, and raised 3 teenagers. What's one more impossible challenge?" Linda smiled, squeezing his hand. "Just another day of parenting, on a slightly larger scale." As the room quieted and the communication channel opened, Tom stepped forward with the confidence of a teacher on the first day of class. Linda stood beside him with the compassionate strength that had comforted countless frightened children. Their own children waited behind them, ready to help guide humanity into its next great adventure. The aliens had expected warriors when they came to Earth. Instead, they found parents. And in doing so, they discovered something far more powerful than any weapon: the universal force of nurturing life, setting boundaries with love, and teaching the next generation to build rather than destroy. As the holographic image of High Counselor Vex materialized before Earth's leaders, Tom stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we welcome the Galactic Consortium to our world," he said, voice steady despite the historical weight of the moment. "We may be newcomers to interstellar society, but we bring with us something ancient and powerful: our capacity to care, to teach, and to protect not just ourselves, but all who need guidance." Linda joined him, adding, "We come from a challenging world that taught us resilience. But it also taught us that the strongest bonds aren't forged through conquest, but through compassion and understanding." The Earth officials watched in amazement as the alien delegation responded with formalized gestures of respect rather than displays of technological superiority. The tone had been set not by intimidation or fear, but by mutual recognition. Later, that evening, as the Miller family gathered in their hotel suite, they reflected on the journey that had brought them here. "Not bad for a physics teacher and a pediatric nurse," Tom said, loosening his tie with a weary smile. "And their 3 remarkably adaptable children," Linda added, looking proudly at Kate, Ben, and Alex. Kate raised her glass in a toast. "To the family business, saving the galaxy one reasonable conversation at a time." They laughed together, the sound of human joy floating up toward stars that no longer seemed quite so distant or unknown. Across the vast expanse of space, Admiral Trell observed Earth on his view screen, a blue marble harboring a species that had fundamentally changed the consortium's approach to the universe. The Deathworlders had turned out to be neither the warriors they'd feared nor the primitives they'd dismissed. They were parents. and in that simple truth lay wisdom older than the stars themselves. The end.